Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Padajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Padajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajikacharya Ashtotter the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajikacharya Ashtotter the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavindi Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Danoktamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamadiriyet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Can you close these curtains for me? Nashta Prayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord who is glorified in transcendental songs is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 29th day of June, 2026 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we will be reading today from the 10th canto, the Samabonam, first chapter, the Advent of Lord Krishna, Introduction, text 45 through 48, and we'll chant 48 together. Okay. 45 translation. So this is Vasudeva speaking to Kaṁsa, trying to convince him not to behead his newly married daughter-in-law, sister-in-law, sorry. No, sister. It's a sister. So this is his continued argument. Vasudeva speaking to Kaṁsa. He's got by the hair, and he's got the sword ready to chop her head off. As your younger sister, this poor girl Devakī is like your own daughter, and deserves to be affectionately maintained. You are merciful, and therefore you should not kill her. Indeed, she deserves your affection. Then Shukadeva Goswami says, O best of the Kuru dynasty, Kaṁsa was fiercely cruel and was actually a follower of the Rakshasas. These are man-eaters, cannibals. Therefore, he could be neither pacified nor terrified by the good instructions given by Vasudeva. He did not care about the results of sinful activities, either in this life or in the next. 47. When Vasudeva saw that Kaṁsa was determined to kill his sister Devakī, he thought to himself very deeply. Considering the imminent danger of death, he thought of another plan to stop Kaṁsa. Purport. Although Vasudeva saw the imminent danger that his wife Devakī would be killed, he was convinced of his welfare because at his birth the demigods had played drums and kettle drums. He therefore attempted another way to save Devakī. And this is text 48. Okay. Mrityur buddhimatapo hyo yavad buddhibalodayam yadi asau na nivarteta naparadho asti dehinaha Mrityu buddhimatapo hyo yavad buddhibalodayam yadnyasau nanavarteta naparadhosti dehinaha Mrityu buddhimatapahyo I'm sorry. Mrityu buddhimatapahyo Yavad buddhibalodayam yadyasau nanavarteta naparadhosti dehinaha Mrityun buddhimatapo yavad buddhibalodayam yadyasau nanavarteta naparadhosti dehinaha Mrityun buddhimatapo yavad buddhibalodayam yadnyasau nanavarteta naparadhosti dehinaha Mrityu buddhimatapo yavad buddhibalodayam yadnyasau nanavarteta naparadhosti dehinaha Mrityu buddhimatapo yavad buddhibalodayam yadnyasau nanavarteta naparadhosti dehinaha Aditya Mrityu buddhimatapo yavad buddhibalodayam yadnyasau nanavarteta naparadhosti dehinaha Want to try it, Nabi? Mrityu buddhimatapo yavad buddhibalodayam yadnyasau nanavarteta naparadhosti dehinaha. What about you, Roy? Mrityun buddhimatapo Yavad buddhi balodayam yadyaso nanivarteta naparadhosti dehinaha. Anyone online? Vanessa, you there?
Mrityur buddhimata pohyo
Mrityur buddhimata pohyo
yavad buddhi palodayam
yavad buddhi balodayam
yadyasao nanivarteta
yadnyasao nanivarteta
naparados didehinaham.
naparadhosti dehinaha. Okay, word by words. Mrityu, death. Buddhimata, by an intelligent person. Apoyaha, should be avoided. Yavat, as long as. Buddhi bali udiyam, intelligence and bodily strength are present. Yadi, if. Asau, that, death. Nanivarteta, cannot be checked. Na, not. Aparadaha, offense. Asti, there is. Dehinaha, of the person in danger of death. Translation. As long as he has intelligence and bodily strength, an intelligent person must try to avoid death. This is the duty of every embodied person. But if death cannot be avoided in spite of one's endeavors, a person facing death commits no offense. Purport. It is natural for a person facing untimely death to try his best to save himself. This is one's duty. Although death is sure, everyone should try to avoid it and not meet death without opposition, because every living soul is by nature eternal. Because death is a punishment imposed in the condemned life of material existence, the Vedic culture is based on avoiding death. Chakva deham punarjanmanaiti. Everyone should try to avoid death and rebirth by cultivating spiritual life, and should submit to death without struggling to survive. Should not submit to death without struggling to survive. One who is not trying to stop death is not an intelligent human being. Because Devakī was face to face with imminent death, it was Vasudeva's duty to save her, as he was trying his best to do. He therefore considered another way to approach Kaṁsa, so that Devakī would be saved. Om jnana-timirandasya jnanandana shalakaya chakshur unmidatam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So, who knows what the other strategy was? Matthias? That Vasudeva came up with.
They would give them a child to Kaṁsa and he could kill them.
Yeah.
As long as he didn't kill them.
Yeah. He promised that there's no point in you killing this child, this Devakī, because whenever she gives birth to a son, I'll give that child to you for whatever you want to do. And so, and it worked, or will work. I hope I'm giving away the plot here too much. That because he was known as very honorable, he kept his word no matter what. And in fact, he did, except for one exception. Who knows what that exception was concerning giving his sons? Krishna. When that eighth son was born, right? Immediately he saw as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? He was born as a little baby with conch, club, disc, and lotus, and long hair, and dressed, as Vishnu. So they offered their prayers, and then I think it was Krishna who instructed him, now take me to Vrindavan and exchange me for the baby who's now just been born under my instructions, though it didn't say that, from Yashoda, who was Maya Devi personified. So you know the plot, we won't give it away too much. But you can imagine the inner turmoil that he's going through here, because he's saving his wife. He's hopeful and confident that this will work. But he's going to have to sacrifice all these children who were born. Of course, he does say, well, maybe there won't be any sons born like that, you know. So but he actually goes through with it. And he gives the first 6. The 7th was actually Balaram, thought to be a miscarriage, actually transferred to the womb of Devakī. And the 8th, of course, was Krishna himself. But the point here of this purport is that somehow or other, one should try to avoid death for oneself or one beloved or someone, you know, like this in this case. And that in this case, it's breathtaking, you know, that he offers to turn over his sons to this Rakshasa, who's, you know, sure to kill them, which he did. Of course, it kind of all turns out, you know, good in the end, because when Vasudeva heard that Krishna, in his days at the Gurukul, had retrieved the dead son of Sandipani Muni. You remember that? He had been caught by a conch in the ocean, and so as Dakshin, Balaram and Krishna, before they went home to Dwarka, and they offered to give them what, you know, whatever he wanted. So he said, well, I've heard you. I think by that time he'd already retrieved, you know, Devaki's sons. But anyway, so they said sure, and so they went to Yamaloka, and they found the son there, and they brought him back to Sandipani Muni. So Devakī heard about that, and she asked that, you know, because she hardly had any time with them, but you know, they were immediately killed by Kaṁsa. So they brought all those babies back. They were up there with Mahavishnu, I think, I forget. But they were able to get them all back, and then, you know, she immediately suckled them at the breast. You know, it's described that, oh, they got prasadam because Krishna had, you know, when he was born. Although I don't see that related in the Bhagavatam, there didn't seem to be time for her to suckle the breast, but it says that, so it must have been done. And then they disappeared. They went back to the spiritual world. But she was very gratified, even for those few minutes. And in that case, that, you know, that Vasudeva's decision was further corroborated as the right one, because Krishna was saved. So the point here, you know, in this passage is that although we're all destined for death, there's no question about that. Everybody dies, as I like to say, and Krishna says. But we should try to avoid it, you know, as far as possible. But at the same time, if we're spiritually aware, we should try to make it this our last death. Since we're all embodied here, and, you know, the body's eventually going to go. We're all going to die. But the mission of human life is to make it our last death. First of all, to understand the principle of transmigration of the soul. The soul never dies and was never born. So these bodies are just like cars. They're just like vehicles we occupy for a certain amount of time. And because we've forgotten our real nature, we identify it as our real self. And this is really such a depressing thing, you know. I mean, I'm old now, you know, but because I practice Krishna consciousness, I know the philosophy. It's not, he said, oh, I remember all the things I could do when I was 18, 19, 20, 21. I've lost all this. Let me go see if I can go to a specialist who can retrieve some of those. You know, people spend millions of dollars, thousands at least, tens, to try to get rid of the wrinkles. That's one thing, you know, and retrieve what you've lost, because it's a long process of losing things and getting older. You know, I used to be able, like I could hardly walk at one point. You know, I couldn't do my walk just recently, and it was depressing. So I thought I'd try the acupuncture. Dharma Setu said there was a nice acupuncturist. I'd already had some good experience with it. I'm not going to tell that story, it's too wild. But there was a devotee here, many of the old timers, Jaigor Sundar, who got certified in California to do acupuncture. You can actually do that. Also Ayurveda. I was his first patient, acupuncture. I won't tell the whole story, but it worked. And it really, so I had some faith in it, and it helped. It's already helped me with the foot, so I'm going to go back there. But that's what old age means. Is like gradually, death is coming upon you. Things that you once had, you lost. Aspirations you had can't be fulfilled. It's generally a depressing thing to get old. It's a matter of loss ending with this death. You don't know what that's going to bring. So that's not natural for the soul. That's the whole basic teaching, the first teaching of the Bhagavad Gita. Dehi nosmin yada dehe komaram yovanam jara. Who can complete the verse? Tata? Yeah. So it's a very, very nice verse because intuitively it gives us it's like a light bulb going on. Yes, I can understand how transmigration is working because even in this one life, we transmigrate. We can all remember like something from when we were 8, 9, or 10, right? So we were back there, and you look back. Yeah, I didn't know this, I didn't know that. I had different. So we had a different body, we had a different mind, but we're the same person. And as time goes on, the body changes, the mind changes. Mind is simply a subtle body, but you are the same. You are the same soul in this body. It's like a complicated machine. And you probably heard this before, I sometimes say this in class, that you want proof that there's a God? Just think about your own body for a minute. How complicated it is, how all the balance has to be there, the temperature, the blood pressure, everything just to work nice. If it doesn't, then there's a problem. Does that make any sense that all came about by chance? It's just ridiculous. And that's just not the human body. Every single body, and they're all different, There's intelligence behind it. And wherever there's intelligence behind something, there's a person. I mean, just these little fat pads that we have now. Fat mats, I like to call them. We used to have the thinner mats. Remember that? So there was the same person behind the thinner mats was behind these fat mats. Yamunapati. He had this idea, and I think went down to Mexico to have them executed and everything. And then we had those other mats for a long time. We had smaller and bigger ones. And then he had an idea, well, I should replace those with these bigger mats would be more functional anyway. So there's a person behind it. And those who created it also, they had certain, experience, means that they had intelligence. Everywhere you look, this whole building, of course, it's all in service to Krishna. That's what a temple means. Wherever you look, everything is in service to Krishna. The mats are making it comfortable for the devotees to sit and hear about Krishna, right? So, but there's so much intelligence behind it. I don't know if you've ever seen those pictures. Purusha's been here forever. I mean, he hardly comes to the temple anymore, I guess for his health. But he still puts out that weekly e-magazine we have, e-newsletter. And he's a photographer, so he's got reams of photographs from way back, 78, I think, when they were working on this temple. And there's the devotees, and you see, some of these things in their original form before they got finished, And it's inspiring to see that this temple is a result of a lot of creative energy. I forget Gunagari's wife before he was Kirtika. She went to India, I think, to get some ideas for these forms and all that stuff. So there's obviously intelligence behind it, and that's why it's so inspiring to come in. So wherever you look in this world, you can see intelligence. If you don't see the intelligence of a human being, you can see the intelligence of God or the gods or some intelligence. So that's a very high indication of the existence of God, of the supreme intelligence. And because it's absolutely absurd. There's a whole issue with Life Comes from Life, the book that Prabhupada, that we put out many years ago in the 70s, based on Prabhupada's famous statement. Life comes from life, not that it generates from matter at a certain point, no. And so I've been thinking of that argument, and I remember Bhadani Ryan Maharaj a lot of his classes he would put in there the proof of the existence of God, how absurd it is to not believe in God. And precisely on that point, that Prabhupada would always say, whenever you see organization, you ever see balance, and you see creativity, result of it, there's a person behind it. You know, these paintings didn't come about. I remember I used to be in the press, and I would see them working on them. You know, they would make drawings at first, and then they put in the colors and all of these different things. So that it's a result of intelligence. There's a person behind everything. So there's a person behind this whole creation, this vast creation. I mean, I remember when I first read the Bhagavad Gita, one of the most amazing statements that Krishna makes about himself. He said, some of you may notice that Vedaham samatitani vartamanani charjana bhavishyani cha bhutani mam tu vedana kashchana. I know everything, every last detail that's happened in the past, everything that's happening right now, and everything that will happen in the future. But me, no one knows. It's just, you know, it's a mind-boggling thing. It's an awe, let's say, you know, awe-inspiring conception that a person could actually know every last thing that's going on right now. You know, just imagine all the atoms moving here and there, you know, and people talking this in different languages, whatever. That's God, you know, inconceivably great. And all the things that will happen in the future, that's even more amazing. Plus everything that happened in the past. So that kind of omniscience. I remember when I was in college and even in high school, we were studying a little of the philosophers and Middle Ages. There were a lot of theologians, you know, and so there were these three basic characteristics of God: omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent. Thank you. And then I heard another one mentioned in a class. Omnibeneficent or something, infinitely merciful and kind, you know, which is very encouraging. But those three is just, you know, they're mind-boggling. Omnipotent, you know, what does it mean, omnipotent? It means all-powerful. That whatever we see, you know, what little powers we have are infinitesimal compared to one fraction of God's power, you know. And he knows everything. Of course, we know he's a super soul in everyone's heart and in every atom. You know, he's all pervading. In fact, the omnipresent and omniscient kind of go together. He couldn't really be omniscient unless he's also omnipresent. He's present everywhere in everyone's heart. You know. So, you know, these kind of details, which are, you know, explained in all our books, especially beginning with Bhagavad Gita, give us an idea of just who God is in all his aspects. And then, you know, comes the most amazing part to me, and that is, you know, the fact that he's playing all the time. He lives for the Leela. He doesn't have any work to do. Probably loves to give this as a verse. Like, natasya karyam karanam cha vidyate, natatsamasya bhyadikas drishyate, padasya shakti vividhai vashruyate, swabhavati jnana bala kriyacha. It's from the Upanishad, I forget which one, but we quote it a lot. So, natasya karyam, he doesn't have any duty to perform. If you think about it, duty is always given by a higher authority, right? I remember when I was working to not go into the army, in Vietnam War, how to escape the draft. You know, they tried, it's your duty, you know, it's your duty by the government. You know, it's your duty to come and fight, you know. So duties are given, you know, of course we accept duties, you know, from the spiritual master, from the temple and so forth, because it's part of what it means to be a devotee, accepting duties to perform. You may not want to do it, but you wash the pots anyway, because you know that's what you're supposed to do, and it's the right thing to do. And the wonderful thing is, you know, accept the duty, which may be unpleasant at first, but then the fact that you're actually doing it for Krishna, if you remember in Krishna, it becomes pleasurable. Even though it's difficult. In fact, the more difficult it is if you take it on, the more you'll feel transcendental pleasure because you're sacrificing. But that's not the point I'm trying to make. So Krishna, Prabhupada would always say, Krishna has nothing to do. When he really means Krishna doesn't have to do anything. You see, there's a slight difference there, but you can understand the English, you know. So he has so much to do. He's playing like anything, you know. But he doesn't have to do anything. Whatever he does as in his play aspect. Even killing the demons. It's all play for him. He's enjoying that. So that, you know, that makes perfect sense when you think, if you were omnipotent and omniscient and everything, what would you do? Would you want to mix in a little bit of, you know, pain into the pleasure? Well, I don't want to, you know, that would be boring. No. You would think, how can I be blissful all the time? And so Krishna has so many ways in which he enjoys. Every one of us is an individual, and we have an individual relationship with Krishna that we are meant to act in. That should be our form of life in the spiritual world. So Krishna is reciprocating with all of these different, he's reciprocating with the gopis, with the cows, with the boys, with his parents, with other elder gopis, and he's even reciprocating with Indra and all the demigods. Sometimes Indra, he gets out of hand, so Krishna has to chastise him. But that's his reciprocation. So it's truly awe-inspiring. At least I'm awed by the whole thing. How Krishna is so infinite. He has infinite servants, he has infinite powers and all this infinity. And yet, we have faith that he also pays attention to us personally. That we need certain, individual instruction, how to progress in devotional service, inspiration from within, and we all have a personal relationship with Krishna. So here we find his great devotee Vasudeva, who is, it's an emergency situation. There's Kaṁsa with the sword, and he's got the hair of his cousin sister, Devakī. And there's nothing, he could do any abominable thing like that. That's what it means to be a Rakshasa demon, So Vasudeva knows this, but he's very wise. He tried this one aspect, but it didn't work. He explained it's like a Vasudeva Gita here. Did you notice that? Like, the verses we've been reading all about the internality of the soul and the presence of karma and all these things. It's mini Bhagavad Gita. But that's not working on Kaṁsa, But this will work, as we know from the past time. He said, all right, if I have insurance and that every baby will be turned over to me, then how can I lose? Well, he did lose eventually, as things go on. But the first 6 children, they've turned over. So it's a very sobering episode here. That these children have to be turned over. But the result is that Balaram and Krishna will appear, and we move to Vrindavan, and the pastime will continue. Kaṁsa will eventually meet his end, most auspiciously at Krishna's hand, which is good for him. He gets some kind of liberation from that. And then, all's well that ends well. The babies will be brought back and reunited with Devakī, although it'll be for a few minutes. But it'll relieve her anxiety tremendously. So that's about all I have to say about these points. If you want to have some discussion on it, it's Vasudeva. In any way possible to try to save Devakī, and this is the way that will work, promising to turn over his sons, children, actually.
Hare Krishna.
Haribol.
Just a brief comment, Dravida Prabhu. Thank you so much for glorifying Krishna so nicely and adding that final omni-beneficent. What a wonderful meditation. Thank you.
Okay. So that's your comment?
That's my comment. Just okay. Thank you for providing the nectar.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Prabhu. And we will resume our evening classes. I think we had it tonight, Monday night, Bhagavad Gita. All right, I'll do what I do on the Bhagavad Gita tonight. I'll end with a little poem. Vanessa?
Also, I have a comment.
Sure.
When you were talking about how Prabhupada said life comes from life. I've been doing this, a training with some devotees overseas, and one of the laws in the training is called the law of life. It means life serves to life. And so any healing, any desire should serve, life, right? Continued life. So I just thought that was interesting and relevant, because we're kind of like appealing to Kaṁsa in the way that, he's very correct. His experience is smart, like he created, like he doesn't want to be destroyed. And similarly, we all have that So I just wanted to say that it's better than to die. So yeah, thank you. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, it's natural that we want to preserve the body because we identify the body with life. Although we know from Krishna, from Bhagavad Gita, that our real life is within and that we won't die. And we see amongst advanced devotees, they meet death with great equanimity. I heard this story about Rajendranandana Prabhu. It's a little ways back now, but I didn't hear it, at the time he passed. And that I remember, he was here for months, and then I noticed that he was having trouble bending down and offering his obeisances, and I asked him about it. Yeah, I've got this chronic back problem, and it seems to be acting up. That's what he thought at first, But it didn't go away, and eventually he checked it out, and it turned out he had cancer, a cancer that was inoperable. So someone told me this months later, this is much more recently now, that when he heard that, he laughed. He laughed. And he said, oh, I thought it was just a passing thing, but now I see him go back to Godhead. He was confident. And he didn't really do hardly anything to try to, he found out and then he just went home and was laying in bed, as far as I know. I also had a serious medical problem at that time, nothing like that, but I had a very serious sprained ankle. I could hardly walk. And he lived on the second floor, his apartment. I noticed that. I visited him once before. And I just felt I couldn't negotiate those stairs. But I talked to him on the phone. And from what I heard, the devotees, I think it was Mukunda, sat with him for hours and hours, wasn't it? Near the end. I heard that he stayed there for 24 hours awake, waiting for him to pass. But he, first of all, there was this scene that many of the devotees know, that he was there with his friend. I don't know his name. He was doing business with him for years, devotee, and he was sitting with him. And Raj was lying down and said, who are all these people in the room? Because this one guy, this one devotee, So it's just us, And so Raj said, oh, I'm seeing all these people. And so he asked him, are they the good people? Meaning like not the Yamadutas, right? So Raj said, yes, And I don't want to speculate on who they were, but it was an auspicious departure. And he had been preparing, for years. He'd spent so much time with Mayapur, with Janani Vas, I think, studying advanced Bhakti. So it was, and I was present at several others, not this one, no, but the other, that I like to recall. Remember Shyamali, Yamuna and Parashakti's daughter. And I knew her very well. When I first came here, the apartment I had with Dibigyan and Gangeya eventually was right across from them. It was just down in the alleyway here. It was like a half a block. And I remember that Shyamali was there. She was, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 maybe. And growing up, and eventually she took up the flute. She was playing the flute. I don't know if you knew that, which was very endearing to me because I played the flute. We played a little bit together. And then, she went off to eventually to college in the UK. I think I understood that. And she met some other devotees there, and they decided to go on the Polish tour with Indradyumna Maharaj. And she, obviously her devotion was nourished by that, and she took initiation from him. And then in that last stage, she's there, and Yamuna was with her. He stayed with her. Parashakti visited, but she had so many duties here. And I would call up, I would call up and I would share some of my poems and things with, and appreciate it. But he stayed, and then he described it. Of course, they had a wonderful ceremony when she departed, right in the temple grounds. But in the memorial, he described how she was so at peace. Indradyumna would call from Vrindavan. He was in Vrindavan. He would stay on the phone with me for a long time, and encourage her and preach to her and everything. It was very wonderful. And that she was just completely at peace. When the end came, he said it was like she just got onto the airplane and got, left. He felt it was a very transcendental departure. So it's possible, even among us, that we can come to that stage where death doesn't have such a horror, you know, and that if we're advanced enough, then we'll get the mercy and actually feel Krishna conscious and feel the support of the other devotees. So that's the goal, after all, of Krishna consciousness, to get to the point where you're hopeful, even confident, that you'll go back to Godhead. But it means that we have to come to the point of thinking about Krishna all the time. And service, you know, trying to sincerely do whatever service duties we have, and especially immersing ourselves in the holy name, chanting, and trying to chant as much as possible. And so many times Prabhupada said, you know, chant 24 hours. What does that mean? Well, it means try to chant more, you know, even in every situation. Even if you cannot chant out loud, chant in your mind, chant on your lips, but somehow or other remember that holy name, which is non-different from Krishna. He's manifest all his powers. I remember reading the 6th canto when I was, I think it was here in the class, and I was studying again, that whole passing with Chitraketu and Vitrasura. Eventually he was, he was cursed by Durga, you know. Anyway, he became realized, you know, by the grace of Narada Muni, and he was riding in his airplane and everything, and he saw Shiva and Durga were surrounded by sages, and Durga was sitting on Shiva's lap, and Chitraketu, he made some comment, or he's laughing, and Shiva didn't mind, but Durga cursed him, you know, that you'll become a demon, like that. So he became a devotee disguised as a demon, Vitrasura, and there was this big battle with Indra. And he wanted Indra to kill him, you know, and send him back to Godhead. So these beautiful prayers at the end there. It's so remarkable. Here's this huge demon, you know. He's known as Vitrasura because it looks like he can swallow the universe, you know. Indra threw his mace at him, you know, his thunderbolt, and there's a painting, and he caught it like with 2 fingers. You know, it had no effect. But finally, he wants to be killed, so he's lying on and Indra is decapitating him. But he's offering these prayers, and it's like such a contrast. He says, I forget the Sanskrit. He said, oh, just like a little bird out of the nest is waiting for its mother to come home, you know, like that. I'm just hoping, waiting for Krishna to come and appear to me and take me back home. And that was very memorable. But the Bhagavatam is filled with this variety of, wonderful pastimes and so much instruction. And it's really, I'm going to start maybe keeping this handy, these 4 or 5 verses by Sanatana Goswami at the end of the, Krishna Lila Stava, glorifying the Bhagavatam. Yes. Oh, but we have a mic because we have an audience. Yeah. Speak into the mic.
So the question is, we started this lesson with the duty of the Veda to stay alive.
Yeah.
And now we are navigating waters where someone is looking forward to die.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a contradiction there.
Well, not really. The idea is that as long as one has an opportunity to live, and it's not just, for a devotee, it's not just to live and survive, but to be able to live and to continue one's life in Krishna consciousness. Then we should do that. We shouldn't voluntarily, because that's close to suicide. Oh, there's the threat of death? Okay, I'll just drive off the bridge, and it'll be over and I'll go back to Godhead. No, intentional death, you get a ghost body if you do that. If you commit suicide, because it means that you want to live, subtly, but you don't want to live in this body anymore. You see, and so then the punishment for that is you don't have a gross body. You just have a subtle body, mind, and the ghosts. They're always unsatisfied because they want to have a material body, and that's why they haunt people and they try to get in their bodies and all that stuff. So voluntary death is not going to work. So as long as possible, we'll stay alive. We go to the doctor and things like that, you know. But when the end is clear and the call is there, we feel it. Then we prepare by, you know, I've been present at so many bedsides in the hospital where devotees, you know, are leaving, and we have hopefully a bunch of devotees chanting, so that they're reminding them of Krishna, so they're filling their hearts with Krishna's sound. So that's the way in which many, and in fact, our own Srila Prabhupada, at the time when he departed, he was surrounded by devotees, 50, 60, 70 devotees in his room, big room, and they were all chanting like anything, and he was peacefully left. But when it's possible to avoid that, and especially this kind of situation, this is a different situation here, where his wife is threatened, and she's predicted to give birth to God, you know. So it's very important that somehow or other he preserve her life. So even though he promised, and he kept his promise to give those babies to Kaṁsa when he killed them all, it was the proper thing for him to do. And ultimately, those babies, you know, they're not killed either, you know. In other words, it's a soul, and so they were retrieved. So it all worked out in the end. But the point is that although death is inevitable, we don't try to hasten it, and but we accept it when it's coming, and we said, okay, this is the natural. This is what happens with the body, and let me try as hard as possible to be Krishna conscious at that moment when we leave the body and the body becomes just a corpse. So it's not contradictory when you see the whole picture, because after all, with this body, devotees are doing services, and some of them are very essential for spreading Krishna consciousness or helping others to be Krishna conscious. And so those in order to continue that service, we should try to preserve our health and our life as far as possible. But when the call finally comes, then we prepare for that. Srila Prabhupada, one of the reasons he worked so hard to establish places in India, there's several places like Vrindavan or Mayapur, the appearance of Lord Chaitanya. And Prabhupada said at one point, yes, so that devotees at the end of their life, they can come here and there'll be a facility for them to live. And they can leave their bodies in what we call the Dham, the holy Dham. Because even doing that, even if you don't do anything else, you're likely to go back to Godhead, just leaving the body in Vrindavan. So it's a little complicated, but it's not really contradictory, because as long as there's a chance you can preserve life, this body, and do duties in Krishna consciousness, you should do it. But when it becomes clear that that's not possible, then you should have a strategy for leaving. Maybe you can't go to the Dham, but to be surrounded by devotees who are helping you remember Krishna. The whole idea is to remember Krishna when you leave the body. That's the key. Krishna says, Antakale chamameva smadan mukta kalevam yak priyade samadbhavam yasti natrata sankshaya. That those who are absorbed in thinking of me when they leave this body certainly come to me in the spiritual world and don't take birth again. This is an unnatural state for us to be encased in this material body. We are all eternal spirit souls. We have a spiritual body, spiritual form, spiritual activities. And the goal of human life is to revive that identity and return to the spiritual world, never to come back here again. Because it's a bad bargain, the material world. It's completely unnatural. There's no lasting happiness here because the body itself is temporary. But there is in the spiritual world. There is eternal happiness in relation to Krishna. Thank you for the questions. I think we'll end there. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.